Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here, the mediocre astrologer. And today I want to look at the astrology of science. We're going to look at scientist chart. So guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Let's get into it. Alrighty, not going to waste any time. Got a lot to cover. Niels Bohr, wrote a little blurb about a lot of. I didn't write. I copied and pasted out actually. He's a Danish physicist who made fundamental contributions to understanding atomic structure and quantum mechanics, which he received Nobel Prize. Worked on the Manhattan Project. That's the atomic bomb. All right. His father received the Nobel Prize. He's widely considered one of the greatest physicists of the 20th century. All right. Let me preface this. What we're going to see a lot of is Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune as well, right? The outer planets mainly, and then Mercury and Saturn, right, for science. Third house as well, and things like Capricorn, Aquarius, right? All right. Sag ascendant, Scorpio MC, so Libra stellium with Sun, Mercury, Moon, Uranus. And then North Node Jupiter and Saturn. So Saturn's in poor dignity in Cancer, but it's square, you see it's square Mercury. So by the exact square by 1 degree from Mercury to Saturn is very much scientific. You know, you either see the conjunction, the opposite, some aspect between Mercury and Saturn, often, not always, of course. And here, Saturn is dignifying Mercury because it's exalted in Libra, right? So that's quite significant. We got a wide Pluto-Uranus conjunction, and they're trining the North Node in Jupiter, Neptune, for imagination. You know, scientists do have to be creative. They do have to have an active imagination because they're in discovery mode, right? It's not pure intellectual pursuits. There's an element of creative imagination and discovery, right? So Neptune does play in. And Pluto plays in the ability to do research, the 8th house Scorpio theme, as well as like very deep diving and penetrating thinking. You know, Scorpio is very, very clever in a certain way of understanding things, diving deep. And then Uranus is very broad, kind of brilliance. You know, Scorpio, or rather Pluto, is the root, and Uranus is the branches, and Neptune is the leaves and flowers and things like that, something like that. Don't take it too serious or literally. In any case, let's see. Venus is opposite Neptune. Actually, that's great for Neptune because Venus is in domicile in Neptune, so that's bonifying this Neptune in the 5th house. Venus is not so good here, but for science, this is the real, the Saturn square Mercury with the Jupiter ascendant lord in Virgo. Virgo is very academic, but the real science is there. 9th house philosophy, becoming philosophical. You know, 9th house is philosophy, but it's also like how we try and like go about understanding life, like how we're making sense of life. So there's a lot of like sort of, what is this life about? Like, let's try and figure it out through science kind of thing. Let's see. Everything's direct except Pluto Chiron, not counting the nodes. Not a very strong chart, but interesting. Mostly that Saturn and Mercury. Okay, so let's keep going. I hate this. Gotta be exact. Otherwise. All right. Copernicus, Nicholas Copernicus. Um, I love it when, all right, I know I kind of like, it'd probably be good for me not to talk about personal things so much, but like my personal opinions, but guys, the Earth's not flat. People have known that for a long, long time. Astrology is based on the heavenly spheres. Spheres mean sphere, circle, not flat, right? That's the whole premise of astrology. Copernicus discovered this a long time ago, but like you see all these arguments online, and they're like, NASA lied, they faked a photo, therefore the Earth's flat. And it's like, how stupid can you be? Like the Earth wasn't invented like last century. You know what I mean? Like we've been around a long, long time. NASA has nothing to do with the Earth being round. It's just like this stupid every single time. NASA lies, therefore the Earth's flat. Like that's the whole argument. Like you guys are just completely stupid, idiotic. And like if you're a flat earther, sorry, you're dumb. Like I don't care if you hate me for it, but you're dumb. So, all right. Copernicus proved that a long time ago. No, everyone wasn't thinking the Earth's flat. Only stupid people. Was the first European astronomer to formulate a modern heliocentric theory of the solar system. Revolution of celestial spheres is often considered as the starting point for modern astronomy. Listen, they knew all the ancient cultures calculated these cycles down to like seconds. They knew the way the universe, the solar system worked. Maybe not the entire universe, but the solar system. And yeah, the Earth is not the center of anything. It's only the egocentric center of certain small-minded people. While the heliocentric theory had been formulated by Greek, Indian, and Muslim savants centuries before Copernicus, his reiteration that the sun rather than the Earth is at the center of the solar system is considered among the most modern. You see, it's like stupid. It's like, while everybody knew that the sun was the center of the solar system, everyone else in the world, except for, like dumb medieval, European idiots, Copernicus invented it. He only invented it for the Westerners. Right. Anyway, still a smart man. Let's see, Pluto, right? Pluto right on the ascent, right in the first house. Okay, Saturn in Gemini. And even though the MC is in Taurus, most of the 10th house is Gemini, Virgo, so very intellectual. But Mercury's in Pisces, which is really interesting. And definitely Pisces would lend itself to a very expanded view. So thinking about outer space and things like that, of course, yes. But Saturn is in Mercury's sign, Pluto is in Mercury's sign, and this is really interesting. This exact in conjunct with Venus. I mean that would be, that's actually 10th Lord, so MC Lord. So that's going to be some deep diving research. 8th house, secrets, hidden things. 8th house gives you secrets. That's why like astrologers, not always, but a lot of times can have 8th house planets because you get secrets from the 8th house. It's like discovering gold or diamonds, right? You're digging deep and you're getting gems or highly valuable like minerals, right? This the secret, right? Like that's like the buried treasure, right? Is an 8th house thing. Pirates buried treasure. All the good things are buried underground. Like not all the good things, but like the valuable minerals, right? So you're discovering like values underground. That's 8th house. So he's discovering secrets. Moon, Jupiter, and Sag. That's very good. 4th house. And then Uranus, Neptune, and North Node in Scorpio in the 3rd house. So 3rd house for the intellect, Scorpio for deep diving, Aquarius for understanding vibrational things. that's the wave pattern of Aquarius. It's this is the Aquarius is the symbol of energy, of understanding energy, right? Energy patterns, wave patterns. I mean, they're all understanding different kinds of energy, all the signs, but Aquarius particularly understands abstract energy, abstract information, abstractions, very strong. Chiron, Mars, square Neptune, and North Node. Saturn and Mercury are not aspecting here. But Saturn and Mars and Chiron are, and Saturn rules Aquarius, or co-rules, so that is dignifying this Mars. Mars being the 8th lord in the 6th. Not a bad combination. So in any case, Pluto, 3rd house, Moon Jupiter is just really good in general. Moon Jupiter, especially in Sag. In the 4th house, probably gives them a really good solid foundation. Not sure if how much that's going to help his. I mean, the Sagittarius element is probably going to make him very high-minded, philosophical. But Venus in the 8th in Aries is going to draw his attention to that deep diving, scorpionic theme. The Pisces just very imaginative and expansive. So, and then the Saturn in Gemini. Interesting. Nodes are stationary. I'm not sure how much that does, but I haven't seen it really be obvious. Neptune seems pretty slow. Let me just check. The outer planets are difficult to tell how fast or slow they're moving. 10 days. That's okay. All right, let's keep going. Marie Curie. Maybe the only female in this list. No, there's one other. I didn't write her thing. Okay, well, never mind that. But she was a famous scientist. Very famous. Anyway, Scorpio, right? People don't think Scorpio is very scientific. It is, because research and deep diving, right? And then the trine to Uranus in the 7th, and grand water trine, in fact. South node, moon, Chiron. South node, moon, wow, in Pisces, she must have been very psychic, in fact, or rather, I should say intuitive. This 3rd whole sign house, not exactly third, I mean, not 3rd quadrant, but 3rd whole sign house. Jupiter's in Aquarius. That's quite good for that high level thinking. But South Node Moon, you will see, if you find a group of psychics, you will see most of them, or a lot of them, have South Node Moon. And then Pisces, very much so as well. That's highly intuitive woman. I think that probably helped her out a lot with her scientific investigations. And then Sun opposite Pluto, Sun conjunct Saturn, Mercury and Sag. Mercury is not that great here. But Saturn is her ascendant lord. Saturn's conjunct the MC. And then Mars, Venus, and then Mars. Mars dignifying all of it. But Sun opposite Pluto, that's pretty intense. That would definitely create a especially because Pluto co-rules Scorpio. So that's not a bad, it's not a bad opposition. It's showing that she's very, very deep diving and thinking. And then the trine to Uranus, that's excellent as well. And then Mars is the 3rd lord. It has Neptune. Mars is in domicile in Scorpio. So very strong 3rd lord. Yeah. Highly intuitive and intellectual woman. But seeing as she was in science, she probably never mentioned it. She just kind of knew, she was just following her nose about where to go, what to do with science, and it worked out for her because of her intuition, very high level intuition. Uranus exactly square Neptune. I think it's really so Mercury is out of bounds. That's gonna be very high level creativity, because Neptune's very creative. Uranus is very big-minded, awake, aware, right? And then with the ascendant too, it's kind of a T-square. So that's interesting. Very expansive creativity. All right, let's keep going. Charles Darwin. I mean, this square, just to comment, the square still works like any other aspect. It just, you have to work harder with it, so it creates a lot of tension. All right, see, really strong trines here. All right, Sag ascendant with Neptune and Saturn. So Saturn, bringing that crystallization. Saturn crystallizes hard things. North node, Uranus. Uranus is stationary. See that S? Stationary Uranus. And Scorpio. Brilliant. Right? I mean, this 11th quadrant, but 12th whole sign house. So something very exotic, high level, systems oriented. 11th house, I'm saying systems oriented because you're getting like networks. So that means systems. That's one way of looking at it. Mars in Libra. Not very good. Moon is in Capricorn, Sun's in Aquarius. So that Sun in Aquarius in the 3rd house, highly intellectual, highly scientific. I know people are like, very narrow thinking. They're like, oh, that's 2nd house. Well, look how close it is to the cusp. And it's in the same whole sign house, right? But here, anyway. And then we get another Mercury and Pisces. I can't believe how many scientists have Mercury and Pisces. Amazing. Pluto and Jupiter. Jupiter's in Pisces, Jupiter's in domicile, right? But then we got Mercury, Pluto for that very, very deep kind of thinking, research, right? Obsessive, right? Just totally like Pluto just creates that kind of like that drive, the incessant drive to go so deep into something, right? So Pisces is the imagination and exotic things, foreign things, water, all kinds of things. But he was into animals. So South Node is in Taurus. It's 6th whole sign house. So I'm thinking like animals, right? So that would be a Venus thing. Venus is conjunct the IC in Aries. So maybe that has something to do with it. And it's trying the ascendant. But anyway, Saturn, Neptune, very crystallized imagination, Saturn, Neptune. Not exactly. I mean, it depends on potentially delusional, but Jupiter is in domicile as well. And that's this Uranus stationary. Uranus stationary. Nothing retro. Everything's direct. I mean, except for the nodes. Oh, Venus, Mars. Yeah, I didn't realize that. But that's a mutual reception, not by degree, but by sign. So that's interesting. Anyway, Charles Darwin. Definitely brilliant with this stationary Uranus and Scorpio, where it's considered exalted. That's where my Uranus is. Right conjunct the ascendant. All right, René Descartes. Very simple chart. Capricorn ascendant, North Node in Aries, everything in Aries, Sun, Uranus, Jupiter, Pluto, Mercury, and then Moon and Venus in Taurus. Moon and Venus exactly 5 degrees conjunct Taurus, exalted in domicile, high dignity there, right on the IC. Amazing. But packed 3rd house, right? And then Mars and Chiron in Gemini in the 6th, academic, Saturn in Virgo, just highly intellectual, right? But also like, with Venus and Moon together in the 4th house in Cancer. Well, I mean, very indulgent, but like happy. He's a happy camper. I mean, his son's exalted. It's very easygoing. Let's see here. Yeah, the Neptune is trine Uranus, Jupiter, Pluto. I think therefore I am. That's a very Aries kind of quote. Um, and I think that's Mercury and Pluto and Jupiter. You're in all these signs in Aries with the sun. In any case. Sun and Lord Saturn is in Virgo in the eighth house. Again, that deep dive. But Neptune is basically conjunct the eighth house cusp as well. All right, let's keep going. Well, let me just check the dignities. Mars is out of bounds. Mercury, Mars. Oh, yeah. Mercury, Mars, mutual reception. That's third Lord, sixth Lord, third and sixth. That's very academic, intellectual. Mutual reception between Moon and Mars, or Mercury and Mars. So very verbal aggression, I guess you could say, potential there. Neptune is retro. I don't think it's that slow. Let's keep going. It's like a race to the finish. Because I'm not very fast in reading these charts. I mean, I'm fast enough, but like I like to take my time. I don't like to be too rushed, but I gotta rush anyway. All right, Ascendant Lord, Mars, Scorpio Ascendant, Mars is in Capricorn in the second house. This is Thomas Edison. He's an inventor. I didn't write a little blurb for him, I don't think. Double D rated chart. So Aquarius, third house, right? With the Mercury, Sun, Neptune, very strong. And then Saturn, Venus, fourth house. Venus is exalted. All right. Why is he an inventor? Let's think about that for a second. It's got South Node Uranus. So Aquarius, of course, Aquarius third house, right? Aquarius is the sign of invention. So is Uranus. The South Node Pluto, that's fifth house, Aries, Uranus. Jupiter, Gemini. Jupiter square. This is interesting. Jupiter square and exalted Venus, but Jupiter rules or co-rules Pisces, so that's not a bad square, right? Jupiter is further dignifying this Venus, which is already dignified. Venus ruling the 11th and the 7th and 6th. 6th, 7th, 11th in the 4th. Fourth house, you know, can be about building actual physical things. So I think he did have physical models, physical things. It's also about home, upbringing. So I don't know, something like that. He also was accused of stealing Nikola Tesla's ideas. And that could be Moon ruling the 8th in essentially the first house, because shared resources going towards him, right? That's quite possible. Any case. What was I saying? Yeah, invention. We see that really strong here. All right. All the planets are direct except Chiron. Jupiter's slow. I don't think that's slow. Ten days. Jupiter's not in great dignity in Gemini. But probably good for a scientist. All right, let's look at Albert Einstein. Cancer ascendant, moon in Pisces, sun in Pisces, Pisces MC. So the imagination, Einstein was very imaginative, right? Like if you hear him talk about his process, he would just say he starts imagining Jupiter, Aquarius, North Node in Aquarius, Mars in Capricorn, Mercury conjunct Saturn, right? In Aries, Mercury conjunct Saturn, very scientific right here. And that's in good dignity with the nodes. Moon in Sag, trine, Venus in Aries. That's fine. I mean, it's okay. Right. Sun sextile Pluto. That's going to be really good for that very deep, penetrating, deep diving kind of thinking. North Node in Aquarius in the 8th house. Sun also has a semi-square to Neptune, right, for the imagination, and Neptune co-rules Pisces. Jupiter is opposite. Well, it's out of sign, but there's a little bit of opposition with Uranus. But Uranus is in the 3rd house, so brilliant in Virgo, right? So that's going to be quite brilliant. Sun is the 3rd lord. It's in Pisces, but it's in the 10th house, so it's strong there, along with Saturn and Mercury. Mercury and Saturn and Venus. Very strong 10th house. Jupiter is in the 9th in Aquarius. So attempting to solve life's existential questions. Uranus is retro. Everything else is direct. So he's quite rebellious with his intellectual pursuits, his academic pursuits. Saturn and Mars are mutual reception. Mars has exceptional dignity. Saturn is dignified as well. Not from being in Aries, but from Mars, not by degree either, but because Mars in Aries sign, Aries is Mars sign, or Mars in Saturn sign, Saturn is in Mars' sign. So it was a mutual reception. But Mars is in a much better position. Mars ruling the 11th house. And not really a cusp here, but that would be the 5th house. 11th and 5th. Interesting. 11th certainly for high level thinking. In any case, let's keep going. Alexander Fleming. I hope I wrote a blurb for this guy. Yeah. He's a Scottish biologist and pharmacologist. Fleming published many articles on bacteriology, immunology, and chemotherapy. His best known achievements are the discovery of the enzyme lysozyme in 1922 and isolation of the antibiotic substance penicillin from the fungus penicillin, which he shared a Nobel Prize with Florey and Chain. Okay. Penicillin. All right, Mercury in the 1st house. It's always going to be very bright. Sun in Leo in the 2nd. This is the 3rd whole sign house with Uranus in Virgo. Even though it's conjunct the IC, it's still the 3rd whole sign house, so I think that plays into it. Then we get whole Taurus stellium. Taurus, very, very grounded, basic kind of thinking, great with numbers, great with math, great with figures, right? Taurus may be slow in pace-wise, they're never dumb. I mean, any sign can be dumb, but Taurus is not a dumb sign. Taurus is excellent with numbers and figures and facts and things like that. So Saturn, Neptune, Chiron, Jupiter, Pluto. All direct. All right. Moon is the ascendant lord. That's in the 6th, conjunct the North Node, South Node Gemini, Venus Gemini. So this is a very strong 11th house. The 11th house is very high level thinking, abstract, brings in that Aquarian vibe, right? And yeah, Uranus is trine Saturn. That's and the whole thing, the whole Taurus stellium. That's really strong. And Mercury in the first. All these planets are direct. Not very many retrogrades. Except for the nodes, which are normally retrograde. But all the planets being direct, meaning shows that he's just kind of go with the flow guy, kind of guy, wants to progress, doesn't want to challenge anything, wants to move things forward. Galileo Galilei. You're probably thinking about Queen right now, but anyway, the accuracy is in question. Yeah, all right. So anyway, the accuracy of this chart's in question. He was an Italian astronomer, physicist, engineer, sometimes described as a polymath from Pisa. Galilei has been called the father of observational astrology, the father of modern physics, the father of the scientific method, and the father of modern science. Studied speed. Anyway, you can read up about it, but that's basically it. Anyway, okay. Leo ascendant with Jupiter, exalted Jupiter, Saturn in Cancer in the 12th. Uranus in the 5th, opposite Neptune. Exalted moon. So Pisces stellium, again with this Mercury in Pisces. Sun's the ascendant lords conjunct Pluto in the 8th. Bingo. Deep diving. And Pisces for Pisces, I think is Pisces we often think of as the ocean, but I think for space, there's still gonna be a correlation, a parallel, because space is like an ocean, right? And some people think the outer space is filled with water. It's not, but there's that parallel, right? Any case, yeah, Venus is exalted here. Pluto is going to go very, very deep, create very, intense, obsessive, similar to the 8th house, right? And Pisces is harmonious with the 8th house. That's very strong. Moon's ruling the 12th house in Taurus in the 10th, right? So again, this Cancer 12th house, Pisces theme. So a lot of water, discovery, deep diving. Jupiter is ruling the 5th, and Jupiter is ruling the 8th, right? And Jupiter is exalted with Saturn. Jupiter, Saturn together is very sort of scientifically philosophical science, theoretical kind of things. All right. Jupiter and Saturn are retro. So religion and law, authority. Definitely not afraid to go against the authorities. All right. Stephen Hawking. He's got that grand Earth trine, so it's such practical thinking. And Jupiter and Gemini retrograde, non-religious, very unorthodox religion. So Venus is the ascendant lord. Venus is in Aquarius, 4th house. But Sun and Mercury are in Capricorn in the 3rd house. 4th house in Aquarius. I'm not sure what the 4th house, how the 4th house is going to play into somebody like Stephen Hawking. Did he build anything? Maybe he liked his house a lot. Maybe he loved being at home. I'm not sure it adds. I mean, the Aquarius does, right? Intellectuality, but I'm not sure how else the 4th house would add to his. It doesn't necessarily have to. I mean, people are multi-dimensional, right? You know, he could be this great scientist, and then he just loves being at home in his hometown or whatever, right? Has a love for his country, right? Things like that. In any case, uh, North Node moon in Virgo. My moon is 19 degrees Virgo too, so very analytical type thinking. And Pluto and Leo conjunct the MC. It's a very prominent career, very obsessive, powerful career. I'm also 11th house moon Virgo, so that's interesting. The Saturn and Uranus are trine that moon in Taurus, and Sun in Capricorn, which is very interesting. Mercury plays into that, especially Mercury trine Uranus. That's brilliant. Saturn Uranus is quite brilliant. Mars and Aries is in the seventh, not great in the seventh, but it isn't good dignity. Okay, so he's handicapped, right? One thing is Mars and Aries conjunct the descendant, right? Because now Mars is in good dignity here, but remember the seventh house reflection. There's always the opposition, especially if it's on a point or an angle, a planet. If there's something opposite, a very strong planet, it's going to get hit by it because the dignity is reversed in the opposite sign. So always have to check the dignities with aspects. So Mars is negatively influencing the self here. And then ascendant Lord Venus is square Saturn. But Saturn rules Aquarius. So but it's also trine, in conjunct the moon. Moon's ruling the ninth house. Moon's conjunct North Node. And Moon does nothing. Venus is not good for Moon because of Virgo. Moon does nothing for Aquarius. Interesting. Jupiter actually seems to be ruling the sixth house, so the health here in the eighth is not very good. It's in poor dignity and retrograde. So perhaps that's why he was handicapped. I think a combination, this Mars is pretty devastating. Venus, Moon, and then Jupiter for his sickness. But for the science, Saturn, Uranus, excellent. Jupiter is good. Pluto, Virgo moon, grand Earth trine, Sun, Mercury, and Capricorn in the third, and Venus in Aquarius doesn't hurt either. Okay, Neptune in the 12th for imagination, very practical imagination, for sure. A lot of retrogrades. Venus and Saturn, right? Oh, I didn't even realize Venus, Saturn. What am I thinking? Venus, Saturn, square, but mutual reception. That's actually, well, what's interesting is that if there's a mutual reception, Uranus would then have ties to Venus, and even though it's co-ruling Aquarius, that can create issues, right? Robin Williams had ascendant Lord Moon conjunct Uranus. That created his comedy. It also created some dementia, sickness for him. Uranus and Saturn, not great for the body. All right, let's keep going. Edwin Hubble telescope. Let's read a little bit about. Born as a athletic prowess rather than his intellectual ability, although he did earn good grades, except for spelling. 7th first place, and 3rd place in single high school in track. State record for high jump. Studied at the university, concentrated on math and astronomy, which led to a BS degree. A bullshit degree. We've got Saturn and Virgo conjunct the ascendant, Virgo ascendant. So very, academic, but Saturn is slow, right? So Saturn's limiting his academic prowess to later in life. He's saying, Saturn's like, you got to grow up first, bub. You're gonna be dumb at first, but later you're gonna be smart. Let's see what else. Then we got a lot of third house activity here. Moon, Venus, Mercury. And third house actually also relates to athleticism, running, because short distance travel. So running short distance, right? If it was a long distance, it would be marathon. It would be more like ninth house, but third house. And then Sun's on the fourth house cusp. And Scorpio, the Scorpio for that deep diving, research, sciencey type stuff. South node, Jupiter in the fifth. Interesting. For sports, it's in Capricorn, so Jupiter's not in good dignity. For sports, that's also quite good. But yeah, there's strong in conjunct with Neptune and Pluto in Gemini in the 10th. So for career, some very high level thinking, right? Gemini, Pluto, Neptune, way out there. And that's in conjunct the South node. So if a planet is in bad aspect to the South node, it's really not going to shine in the early, it's not going to come easy in the first part of life. In the second part of life, it might come easier. So I think the in conjunct is more of a challenge than the semi-sextile, which would be the other, that would be Neptune to North node, right? That's going to be more, unless the in conjunct is a healthy one, which this one isn't, because Jupiter doesn't do well in Gemini or Capricorn, right? And then Pluto and Neptune are favorable for neither sign. So this is not a great in conjunct. The semi-sextile just seems a little bit more conducive because it's same self. Any case, it depends on the sign, I think, mostly, but let's see what else. Yeah, primarily this third house, this Saturn in Virgo conjunct the ascendant. That's gonna be very sciencey. Saturn square Neptune and Pluto also is going to play into that. The square again is going to create some tension, make him have to work for it, but eventually it's going to translate into that very crystallized, deep, penetrating kind of logic and thinking, which is what science really is. It's thinking that goes really deep and is very crystallized, physical, material, very Saturnian. Again, a lot of direct planets. Mars and Venus. Oh yeah. Mars and both in poor dignity, but in each other's sign. And that's the third lord, the fourth lord, but second, third houses. Interesting. But third house for sure. Johannes Kepler. He was an astrologer as well as an astronomer, I believe. I should have written his copy and paste his blurb. Little bio there. But definitely an astrologer and astronomer, and yeah. Anyway. Gemini with Neptune right on the ascendant, Neptune retrograde, Moon in Gemini. So very imaginative, intellectual, imaginative. North MC in Aquarius, Jupiter and domicile with Pluto. So again, the Pisces for thinking about space. right? The great expanse. And Pluto wanting to really penetrate. Jupiter for the belief system. The Capricorn stellium. Mercury, Uranus, Sun, Venus, and the South Node in Sag. And that's very much eighth house. Well, seventh house moving to the eighth house, seventh, eighth house for that deep penetrating kind of secrecy, discovering hidden gems. Saturn and Scorpio, again, for the, that similar theme. I see in the third whole sign house, but North Node conjunct the third house cusp in Leo. Sun is ruling the third cusp in the eighth. Conjunct Uranus and Venus and Mercury. Mercury conjunct Uranus is brilliant. Sun conjunct Uranus is brilliant. Right. Uranus for astrology, very strong. Pisces for just in general, thinking about space and all that. North Node, MC in Aquarius, South Node in Aquarius, Gemini, intellectual. All right. Mercury's out of bounds. All right, nothing else seems very unusual. Let's keep going. Antoine Lavoisier. I should have written his blurb down. Hopefully, no. I have to pause it because I don't know anything about this guy. All right, sorry about that. I'm back, and here we are. All right. Father of modern chemistry was a French nobleman. Prominent in the histories of chemistry, finance, biology, and economics. Histories. He stated the first version of the law of conservation of mass, co-discovered, recognized, and named oxygen, as well as hydrogen, discovered the phlogiston theory, introduced the metric system, wrote the first extensive list of elements, and helped to reform the chemical nomenclature. He was an inventor and administrator of the Ferme General, a private tax collection company. All right. Chairman of the board of the Discount Bank, later the Bank of France, and a powerful member of the number of other aristocratic administrative councils. Okay, interesting. Seems to have been busy man. So he's got a Libra ascendant with Venus running the ascendant and Mars. So Venus and Mars running the ascendant is very passionate. When Venus and Mars are coming together, probably very attractive man with Venus and Mars on the ascendant. However, relationships will not be great for him because Mars ruling the seventh. He's attracting people. I mean, okay, because I think Venus is in domicile, but still Mars is in detriment. Any case. Moon, Pluto, South Node in Scorpio in the second house. Interesting. Moon, Pluto, and Scorpio. Not a great combination. Not a great combination because Moon is debilitated, and Moon, Pluto together are a terrible combination because the Moon is very sensitive. It does not like to be dragged deep into the depths of Pluto and Scorpio. Oh, so intense. But remember I said histories? That's a second house thing because mental resources or knowledge or remembering facts, or which is what history is a second house thing. So if you want to look deep into the past, that's second house. History, encyclopedic kind of knowledge, second house. Also banks, he was dealing with money and things like that. But Mercury in Virgo, Sun in Virgo, Saturn, Jupiter in Virgo, right? Mercury is 0 degrees Virgo, 11th house. That's incredibly strong for sign C type stuff. Uranus is in Capricorn. Jupiter is ruling the third house in Virgo with, all conjunct Saturn, Sun conjunct Saturn, Mercury in Virgo. So very smart, very academic, and sciencey because Saturn's crystallizing all that. 11th house, very high level, abstract kind of thinking. Uranus is connecting with the sun in a sesquisquare, and Uranus on the IC still, influencing the MC and opposite Chiron, which is pretty normal. Neptune in the 9th, the 10th whole sign house, trine, south node Pluto, moon. Now, this could be highly intuitive as well, like highly intuitive, like even bordering on psychic, but definitely troublesome to the mind. Definitely creating a lot of tension there, and intensity. But probably not bad for science because that Pluto wants to dive deep. So does the Scorpio. Uranus is retro. It's the only retro. So that's a trauma indicator on the 4th house, by the way. And probably even more so if it's retrograde. But Mercury has excellent points there. Excellent dignity. Especially at 0 degrees. It's going to just go to the extremes. Let's keep going. Ada Lovelace. She was considered like the first computer programmer. All right. It's mainly known for having written a description of Charles Babbage's early mechanical general purpose computer, the analytical engine. Ada was the only legitimate child of the poet Lord Byron and his wife. She was named after Byron's half-sister. All right. So anyway, she was considered the first computer programmer. So Mars in Aries in the 1st. This is not bad. This is good. Because Mars is in dignity here. Mars is not so good for Moon in Aries. Moon ruling the IC. So she's Mars. Moon is the IC. 4th house, mother, parents, family in general. Probably not so good for that relationship. Mars too strong for Moon in Aries. Let's see here. Saturn in Aquarius in the 11th house. So that's that, very high level, abstract, energetic thinking with Saturn, crystallizing it, and a lot of philosophy. Sun, so Mercury, Uranus, Sun, Neptune. So definitely the brilliant kind of thinking, the high level, Sag kind of philosophical and grad school, high levels thinking. Pluto and Pisces in the 12th. Venus and Jupiter in Scorpio on the 8th, pretty much conjunct the 8th house cusp. So that's very deep diving. And Venus is not in good dignity here. Venus is the 2nd lord. So North Node in Gemini in the 3rd house. That's going to be very prominent. Okay. Mars is trine South Node, Neptune, and Sun. And Sun is exalted in Aries, so that combination is really good. In any case, Saturn in Aquarius, 11th house, Sun, Uranus, Mercury, Neptune. Neptune for the imagination, right? But Uranus for the brilliance. Venus, Jupiter. These are both benefics. Not great in Scorpio, right? So I wonder what happened to his partner who went to 7th lord in the 8th house. Probably not something great, but I wonder. I don't know. Probably could be mixed bag, but very excessive. But just loves to go deep into things. No. Again, everything's direct, except for the nodes. Let's keep going. Dmitri Mendeleev. I don't know why it has all these question marks. Unknown time of birth rectified by Starkman. Okay, so the quality of this chart is, well, questionable. It's rectified. So anyway, as a Russian chemist, he's credited as being the primary creator of the first version of the periodic table of elements. Unlike other contributors, the table Mendeleev predicted the properties of elements yet to be discovered. It's pretty impressive. So Virgo ascendant with a 6th house Aquarius stellium with Sun, Uranus, Moon, Mercury, Venus, right? Again, that Uranian influence. Saturn exalted and Libra opposite Pluto. That's very intense, right? Because Saturn and Pluto are such heavy duty planets, so serious. And this is a difficult aspect. But it's second with the knowledge. Saturn being very prominent with science and as well as Pluto in the 8th house in Aries. So very deep diving, penetrating, and also Aries brings in the ability to be initiative. But 6th house is academic and daily grind. Mars and Capricorn, conjunct Neptune, trine Chiron. Anyway, interesting. Mars is the 8th lord and the 5th. Mars is the 3rd lord. So Mars is the 3rd lord, right? That's more significant. And the 5th, so creative intellect. It's a lot of training. Mars can still be very smart. It's not typically thought of as being an intellectual planet, but it can be. But it's going to be more geared towards mechanics and engineering and things like that. So anyway, a lot of Aquarius, high level with Uranus being influencing the sun, Uranus in domicile in Aquarius, and influencing this whole stellium basically. And then mutual reception between Venus and Saturn with a trine, and that's excellent. That's really, really strong. Because not only mutual reception, it's by degree. And that's where you get the best aspect. If it was exact, it would be like fantastic, brilliant. We're getting Venus is dignifying this Saturn in the 2nd house in Libra. Saturn is ruling the 5th and 6th house. And Venus is in the 6th house, ruling the 2nd house and the 9th house. And essentially the MC as well. So interesting. Definitely lends itself to a lot of intellectual capacity. Saturn's retrograde. Yeah, Saturn, Venus. Let's keep going. I hope you guys are understanding this. There's always more than one thing that's going to make someone into a scientist, right? But it's usually like Uranus, Saturn, Pluto, and then the intellectual signs. But it's going to be a little bit different for each person, obviously. So Libra ascendant, the sun in the 3rd house in Capricorn. That right there is very strong for some intellectual pursuit or writing, communication, media. But anyway, it's got usually a lot more than that. So Isaac Newton was one of the original. I didn't write his blurb, but you probably know about him. The apple fell and stuff like that. Newtonian physics, things like that. So Pluto and Gemini in the 8th house. That's very strong. Opposite Neptune. Mercury and Sag, not in great dignity, but it is very philosophical, Mercury. Venus in Aquarius, trine the ascendant, and that is the ascendant lord. Jupiter and Saturn in the 5th house in Pisces, Jupiter in domicile, Jupiter trine Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn's a little wider, Jupiter closer, but Uranus. So that's really nice. It's going to be very brilliant. Sun is the ascendant lord. So Sun, MC Lord. MC Lord in the 3rd house. Ascendant Lord in the 4th in Aquarius. Mercury square Saturn, right? By 1 degree. So that is very strong for science, even though the Pisces, the Pisces thing, the Pisces influence is really making these scientists think very big, right? They're not trying to be like, this is not just math, right? These are not just like mathematics, which is like just like pure structure. They're trying to like invent things and be creative, and that's where the Pisces plays in. Sun sextile Jupiter. North node in the 12th house, also very creative. Moon in Cancer, 9th house, very philosophical. This is kind of opposite, a little wide, but still. And Mars would definitely benefit this Uranus because it's in domicile. So it's not a bad opposition. It's a good one. Although Uranus probably doesn't benefit this Mars. Relationships might not be that great. In any case. Yeah, everything's direct except for Pluto and Chiron in the nodes. Robert Oppenheimer, there's a movie about him. And he was, I guess, the main guy in behind the bomb, the A bomb. So he was a theoretical physicist. I always think that's funny because I'm like, in theory, he's a physicist, but in real life, he's not. A professor of physics at the University of California, Berkeley. Oppenheimer was the wartime head of the Los Alamos laboratory and is often credited as the father of the atomic bomb for his role in the Manhattan Project. World War II undertaking that developed the first nuclear weapons. I just want to say, like, there's this whole thing where, like, people are saying that the A-bomb was fixed, that it wasn't like, it was just like another conspiracy theory, that it wasn't real. But people really did die of radiation, like not just die like bombs, like so like they definitely dropped a radiation bomb in Japan. I mean, there's a lot of firsthand knowledge of that and firsthand experience of seeing the aftermath. And the evidence where like a lot of people, certain people survived by eating miso soup, because miso is very good for radiation poisoning. Any case, weird. He later remarked that the explosion brought to mind the words of the Bhagavad Gita. Now I am become death, the destroyer of the world. Yeah. All right. Gemini ascendant with Pluto in the 12th, but conjunct the ascendant, Neptune in the 1st in Cancer. So Pluto, we would definitely want to see for something like this, Oppenheimer creating the atomic bomb. That's going to be very Plutonian. And Uranian. And look, all three are playing into the ascendant. One from the descendant still ties into the ascendant, just in case you don't know that. I have to reiterate it. But basically, an conjunction opposition between Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, and the ascendant, right? Pluto, Neptune conjunct the ascendant, Uranus opposite. So these outer planets are playing together. Moon in the second in Cancer, North Node in the fourth in Virgo. Now this fourth whole sign house too. So what's interesting about the fourth house for North Node, Virgo? Virgo is very analytical, academic. Fourth house is for building things, right? Actual material, physical things, right? The bomb is a physical thing. Not that, I don't know if he actually built it himself, but he was considered the father of it. So that's interesting. Jupiter's ruling the MC. That's in the 11th house of groups, networks, systems, abstract thinking, energy, wave patterns. Venus and Jupiter are conjunct in Aries, where Venus is in detriment. Sun and Mars and Mercury are in Taurus. Oh, but Venus and Mars have an exact mutual reception by degree. So that's interesting. That's 11th and 12th house. That 12th house creativity is going into that 11th house abstract, high-level thinking. Saturn is in Aquarius along with Chiron. Let me just check dignities and stuff like that. So Uranus is retro, everything else is direct. Here's that moon, Mars, Venus, mutual reception, Saturn, moon in good dignity. So Aries is always going to be, not always, but often going to be involved, Aries and or Mars, or the first whole sign house, first house ascendant, involved in starting new things. So as father of the A-bomb, it's definitely going to, apply to Aries. But Aquarius, also 11th house. Virgo, not so much moon in second house. That's good for studies and knowledge and speaking and resources and things like that. But also this, just for bringing the self into that realm of really far out there stuff, right? The Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, these are far out planets. So when they're influencing the sun, the moon, the ascendant, the person is going to be far out, right? Right? I have Uranus on the ascendant. I'm far out. A lot of these scientists are far out because they're thinking about all kinds of crazy stuff, like particles that we've never seen, A-bomb, like destroying the atom, right? Astronomy, space, inventions, things that we don't know yet. You have to be far out in order to get there. Saturn, exactly trine Neptune. Uranus, trine the sun, even though it's out of sign. Bingo. I mean, these are very prominent aspects. Chiron square the sun for something very unusual. Interesting. Anyway, let's keep going. Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur has pasteurized everything. All right. French chemist and microbiologist renowned for discoveries of the principles of vaccination, microbial fermentation, and pasteurization. Chemistry, breakthroughs, disease, cause and prevention of disease, hygiene, public health, and much of modern medicine. Actually, modern plumbing did more to stop disease than anything else, way more than vaccination. The whole vaccine thing is largely a myth. Vaccines didn't really do anything. Almost all the diseases were pretty much, if you look at the graphs, they're all like down to nothing. Then vaccines were invented, and the vaccines take credit, but it's not at all. It's plumbing, it's irrigation, it's not drinking from the water that you're pooping in. That's it. And that dead rats are dying in, and dead animals, and dead cats and dogs and people. They're just like, like pooping and peeing in the streets and dumping all the dead animals and rotten food, rotten meat, everything into the water. And then they're getting sick. Like, of course you are, because you're drinking dead, like you're drinking your poop and pee and dead animals, dead rotting food and meat and everything. So packed third house, packed, right? Mercury, Sun, Neptune, Venus, Uranus, and Mars. Mars is exalted, but yeah, I mean Uranus, Mercury, Neptune, Mars. Venus is will play in because Venus shows where you love. So if Venus is there, you love it, you're always going to do it anyway. You're going to do it in your leisure time. So Venus, don't underestimate Venus, right? Venus is very powerful. It's not necessarily going to make you more intellectual in that area, but it's just going to draw you to it. Venus is what you love. So if you love something, you're just going to be always in it, right? And therefore you're going to get good at it. So Venus will help you tremendously, right? And Mars is the planet of action. So if you have Mars in a sign, that's where you're gonna, and your physical energy is gonna go. You're gonna be doing and creating, initiating in that area as well. So that as well is going to be very, very important. North Node in Aquarius, Moon in Gemini, Saturn in Taurus, right? These are all very, very practical. Chiron square Venus. That's interesting. Venus is the 8th lord and the ascendant lord, Louis Pasteur. Not sure how that plays into this guy's obsession with pure. I don't know if he was obsessed with puritanical stuff. That would be a Virgo type thing, which doesn't have any planets in Virgo. Mercury's ruling it. Mercury's conjuncting the sun, maybe. In any case, Leo's conjuncting the MC, or Leo's ruling the MC and the South Node. Yeah, it's just very strong third house. Discovery of tiny particles. Where would we see that? That's probably Pluto and Neptune. Pluto and Pisces. Pluto and Neptune. Pluto and Pisces. Pluto is pretty much square Mercury, even though it's out of sign. The Pisces would be invisible, as well as the Neptune. Sun is exactly conjunct Neptune and Venus. So the Neptune for invisible things, for sure. Saturn, trine, Mercury, and Sun. Saturn ruling Capricorn. Saturn dignifying this whole stellium from the 7th. Jupiter, trine, Mars. That one's not as good because Jupiter does nothing for. Jupiter is not good for Capricorn. In fact, it's debilitated. Mars is in detriment in Taurus. So that's one trine that really doesn't work that well. I mean, it's probably good and bad. But there's a sextile with Jupiter and Pluto, and Jupiter co-rules Pisces. So that's really good. Yeah. All right. Extremely strong third house. Gemini, Moon. Jupiter and Saturn are retro. It's not really relevant, but he's unorthodox, religious, and also as far as rule, authority, tends to be rebellious towards that. Venus and Saturn have mutual reception. Yes, they do. And oh, that's really strong because that's trine. And by 2 degrees. Brilliant. That's really brilliant. Venus is the ascendant lord. Saturn is ruling the 3rd and 4th cusp. Right? Venus is the 8th lord too. That's dangerous, but also like very, very deep penetrating. Great for research. Great for discovering hidden things, secrets and all that. Linus Pauling. was an American scientist, peace activist, author, educator, considered the most influential chemist of the 20th century, ranks among the most important scientists in history, first scientist to work in the field of quantum chemistry, molecular biology, and orthomolecular medicine, optimum nutrition. He's one of a small group of people who've been awarded more than one Nobel Prize. No, they spelled it Nobel Prize, Nobel. Only one of the two people to receive them in different fields. The other was Marie Curie, who we already looked at. Award, and he didn't have to share it with another recipient. Scorpio ascendant, basically right, almost exactly the same as mine. Leo MC, Moon in Cancer in the 9th. So for academia, college, all that stuff. We see a strong third house with Saturn in Capricorn in domicile, along with Jupiter and Chiron, third house cusp. Right, so that's very strong for the intellect. Pluto is stationary in the 8th house in Gemini with Neptune, opposite Uranus. That's brilliant. That right there is so intellectual, right? So deep diving, so penetrating. I actually have my son right here at 15 degrees Gemini with the same ascendant, right? So I'm deep diving into astrology. He's deep diving into chemistry and physics and all that. Another Mercury in Pisces with Sun in Pisces. Interesting. With Venus in Aquarius. So definitely loves that being at home, being in a laboratory, being the mad scientist, being the Aquarian inventor, looking at abstract energy patterns and things like that. And Sun, MC, ruling the MC in the 5th house for education, entertainment, school, regular basic school is 5th house. Sun and Mercury in Pisces, so Pisces, imagination, right? Definitely creative, but really tied into the far out there academic, deep diving, Gemini intellectual, Pluto deep diving 8th house, deep diving, penetrating, research oriented, brilliant, all that. And then the 3rd house, North Node in Scorpio, same as my North Node. Mars in Virgo. I mean, this guy's loaded with, sciencey and intellectual, as well as creative kind of thinking. So Mercury's retro and it's pretty slow. Mars is retro, Neptune's retro, and Pluto's station. And like I said before, the stationary planet is like super duper powerful. It's more powerful than a planet in good dignity. It is. Stationary planets are, if it's in good dignity, and it's even more so, but stationary planets are the best. All right. So yeah, there's that. Moon trine Mercury. That's nice. And then trine the North Node. It's almost a grand water trine. Venus is square the nodes, where Venus is actually dignifying the South Node, but harms the North Node. So I don't know how that plays out, but Mars actually almost exactly up, almost opposite Venus, and almost square the nodes. Anyway, let's keep going. Carl Sagan, we're almost at the end. All right, Carl Sagan, 6th house. He had a TV show, 6th house TV shows, the periodic, regular, daily grind, like the regular, right? North Node in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, North Node conjunct MC. So very strong career with Saturn. Venus is the MC ascendant lord. Venus is in Scorpio, not in good dignity. But nonetheless, the Scorpio for the research, science, TV show, South Node in Leo. And Mercury and Jupiter both square the nodes. Interesting. So we're getting very philosophical with this Mercury and Jupiter. His expression is becoming very philosophical, even though he's very sciencey in his career. And then Uranus is almost opposite Mercury. Moon's in the 8th house in Sag. The moon is sextile Saturn. And that's okay. I mean, moon in the 8th house is not great, but good again for that eighth house themes. Pluto is sextile the ascendant. That's gonna be really strong as well. Mars, Neptune. So okay, so moon is the third house lord, and it's in the 8th house. So taking that intellect very deep and philosophical. And then Mars has a mutual reception actually with Mercury. So 5th and 7th lord, but with the 5th and 6th house exchange. Mercury's retrograde, moon's out of bounds, Uranus retrograde. So Uranus is retrograde, but it's in the 12th. No. I think that's pretty much it. Definitely a scientist, but more so lending himself to like the TV shows and philosophy, scientific philosophy, right? Because of the Jupiter influence, Jupiter, Mercury. Nikola Tesla, Pluto on the ascendant, Uranus in the 1st house, Mercury in the 3rd in Gemini with Saturn, and then moving into the 4th. 4th house for building machines, actually building actual physical things. Venus is the 4th lord, or the MC lord. Ascendant lord, sorry. Yeah. It's like I'm just like saying stuff because I'm tired. And when I talk a lot, things come out wrong. Anyway. So Pluto on the ascendant, that's very prominent. Moon, Mars, South Node, Libra. And then Venus, Moon by square, mutual reception, exact. Venus, the ascendant lord in the 4th. Moon, the 4th lord in the 6th. So we're exchanging 4th and 6th. Every day, daily grind, building machines, things like that. Neptune, Mars in conjunct, Neptune in Pisces. See, he was highly imaginative as well. He could imagine the machines in complete 3D, fully working order, detail, and then build them. All right, and then Sun is trine Neptune. Neptune is in conjunct Mars. Even though the in conjunct is not very good, because he's building machines. So that's the 4th, 6th trade, mutual reception. With Moon and Venus, but Mars still tied into it. Because Moon's ruling the 4th lord, conjunct Mars. this Neptune is this Pluto. It's first of all, it's in good dignity, and it just seems to be helping. So I don't know. He did have a very active imagination, and that maybe more so with the moon trine, or sorry, Neptune trine Sun. Maybe that's why. But Neptune's playing a strong role in it, and the 11th house, Neptune 11th house. So Mercury nodes are stationary, so maybe that does have something to do with it. Because seeing is so brilliant, right? But we also have Mercury, Saturn, even though it's out of sign, they're still conjunct in the third house. And then Pluto and Uranus in the first. North node, Jupiter in the 12th in Aries. So Aries for, Aquarius for invention, but Aries also for starting new things, right? For being a trailblazer. 12th house for creativity. Neptune for imagination. I mean, Chiron square the ascendant and Pluto, and that does make him kind of weird. He was kind of weird. And Chiron's in Aquarius, and it's in the 10th house. His whole career, his whole public image was sort of Chironic, right? He's building these electric machines, Aquarius, that nobody's ever seen before, Chiron. What else? Mars is dignifying this north node. So as he gets older, if things are better. And Jupiter here too. Mars would dignify these guys. And that would include creative imagination. William Thompson. Oh, I didn't write his blurb thingy. I'm gonna pause it 1 second. Yeah, sorry about that. Sharing the screen. All right, William Thompson. It's because I don't know anything about him, but he's considered a great scientist. All right, he was a British mathematical physicist and engineer who was born in Belfast, University of Glasgow. He did important work in mathematical analysis of electricity, the formulation of the first and second laws of thermodynamics. He did much to unify the emerging discipline of physics in its modern form. He worked closely with mathematical professor Hugh Blackburn in his work. He also had a career as an electric telegraph engineer and inventor, which propelled him to the public eye and assured his wealth, fame, and honor. Okay. Cancer. So Jupiter and Cancer right in the ascendant. Cancer ascendant, south node, Sun, Venus, Moon in Gemini, with Mercury in Gemini in the 12th, Saturn in Gemini. Saturn, Mercury, Gemini, 12th house. Yeah, 12th house for secret hidden things, for discovery, for creativity. Gemini for the intellect. Mercury in Gemini. Domicile Mercury, Saturn. Jupiter in Cancer, right in the ascendant. And again, Pluto and Chiron in the 10th house. In Aries, initiating. North node, Uranus, Pluto, or Neptune, sorry. And Mars is Mars not in a great position. Mars in Libra in the 4th. Does not do well for the ascendant with the square the nodes. But the descendant or 6th house, yes. So the north node. So second half of life better than the first. Goes more towards work and partnerships. 6th, 7th house, Uranus, Neptune. But Jupiter's in Cancer in the first. Mercury's in the third, IC is in the third whole sign house. But Sun is ruling. the third cusp. So we look to Mercury, but also Sun. So Sun's in Cancer, it's conjunct South Node. So you can say South Node conjunct the third house cusp, or third house cusp in domicile, in conjunct the 12th cusp. Third Lord. Because most of the third house is Virgo, right? And these house cusps can move depending on which house system you use. So don't get too attached to them. The only ones that are firm are the ascendant, descendant, IC, MC, right? All these in between ones, you have to be a little bit flexible with them. Moon's a little out of bounds. Uranus and Neptune are retrograde. I think if you have too many retrogrades, you're not going to go into academia because you're going to be too rebellious, right? You could be a brilliant genius and not be a part of the system. And if you have too many retrogrades, you're just going to fight everything. You're just going to be a rebel and an outcast. All right. Neil deGrasse Tyson, not my favorite scientist, but we'll look at his chart anyway. Saturn on the ascendant, Virgo MC, with Pluto and Virgo in the 9th, Uranus in the 8th, essentially 8th quadrant, but 9th whole sign house, conjuncting 9th cusp. Let's see, Jupiter in Scorpio with Neptune in the 11th house. North node in Libra, Sun, Mercury, Venus in Libra. In the 10th house, we see very strong career. There's a Pluto-Mars square, which makes him very, very driven. Mars is in Gemini, so that's in the 6th house. So 6th house for a TV show, right? Cosmos. Mars square Pluto they're just extremely driven, right? Both very aggressive planets. One's more psychological, one's more physical. But creates tremendous drive and force. Mars is trine Venus, and that's actually really great. Mars trine Venus. So I'm sure his sexuality is pretty potent. You know, even though he's not classically a good-looking guy, he's not thin, he's not young. Maybe when he was thin and young, he was very hot. But yeah, Mars trine Venus is sexually, sensually, potent, strong, good, healthy. Moon is trine Jupiter. Well, that's really nice too. Jupiter exalted in Cancer, Moon's in domicile. So this moon is really strong. 8th Lord, Moon's the 8th Lord. So for that deep diving. Saturn's ruling the 3rd Lord, Saturn and Uranus, Aquarius. So 3rd Lord in the 1st house. 3rd Lord in the 8th, 9th. Right, so academic. Yeah, 8th for the depth, the research, 9th for the college level academia type stuff. All right. He is quite Libran and is smooth, like Libra's very smooth, right? So, in any case. But it's Jupiter and Neptune are going into Scorpio in the 11th house. So that's very much sciencey, but also deep and dark and occultic, heavy. So interesting. And Pluto's in Virgo, so the psychology is becoming very academic. All right. Stationary nodes. Interesting. Not sure what I think about them. Stationary. Anyway, let's keep going. Last one, James D. Watson. Elementary, my dear Watson. Yeah, probably not the same Watson. All right. American molecular biologist, best known as one of the discoverers of the structure of DNA. Watson, Francis Crick, and Maureen Wilkins were awarded the 1962 Nobel Prize in Physiology for Medicine for their discovery concerning the molecular structure of nucleic acids and its significance for information transfer in living material. Okay, we don't need to know about that. All right, discovered DNA, one of the people. So Pluto on the descendant, but still remember, ascendant, descendant. Descendant is just the ascendant with other people. That's all the descendant is, the ascendant with other people. And also it defines the relationships we have with other people, right? It defines the relationships itself. It defines you and it defines the other. It defines the relationship. It's the self of the relationship. Okay. So very controlling. And then Saturn's in Sag with South Node in the 11th quadrant, 12th whole sign house. Moon is in the 9th quadrant, 10th whole sign house. Trine Mars. And this is not a great trine because Moon does nothing for Aquarius and Mars is not good in Libra. But Uranus is in Aries in the 3rd house. So for discovery, along with Sun and Jupiter, that's brilliant. And then Venus is conjunct Mercury in Pisces. Now we have Venus conjunct Mercury right now in Leo at the 28, 29 degree. Conjunct Regulus, the heart of the lion. But Venus is exalted in Pisces. This is actually excellent for creativity. This is what Bach has in the 12th house. Also, Ravi Shankar has in the 12th house. And probably a number of other people who I can't recall off the top of my head, but excellent. And that's in the 2nd house, but moving into the 3rd house. I mean, it's very close to the 3rd house, but we can call it 2nd house. Probably great for money. Yeah. In general, the 2nd house would deal more with, like I said before, resources. But this is also interesting, Mars and Uranus, because Uranus being the co-ruler of Aquarius, Mars ruling Aries. These are also have somewhat of a mutual reception here. What else? Sun is square. Sun and Jupiter are square Pluto. So even though it's square, it's still bringing that Plutonic influence into the sun. So making the sun, which is still plays strongly into the nature of the mind. It's going very deep. Like Sun Pluto is way better than Moon Pluto, first of all. But Sun Pluto can be very deep diving, very, very penetrating kind of thinking. North Node in Gemini in the 5th house. This is the 3rd house, so that's very strong. Neptune in Leo in the 8th, very creative. Neptune is opposite Mars. Let's see here. Mars ruling the 3rd and the MC. So this Mars is pretty prominent and it's opposite Neptune. Trine Moon. So that's going to be very good for the, like, imagination is going into very deep things. All right. That's basically it for the science-y type stuff. We saw a lot of Saturn, a lot of Pluto, a lot of outer planets, a lot of 3rd house activation. Mercury, Saturn, things like that. Aquarius. Scorpio, the earth signs, a lot of combinations, but we're just generally getting a very intellectual plus a creative, imaginative thing with Pisces. We see a lot of Pisces, Neptune, because these are mad scientists. They got to be out there. Their brain is going into the ether. Saturn's retro, Neptune's retro. Saturn looks pretty slow. Let me check. Eight days from station, so Saturn's pretty slow, but that's the ascendant lord. Alrighty, guys, that is it for the scientists, astrology of science. Like, subscribe, share. Book a reading with me. My website's macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. That's my email. Sorry. My website is macroastrology.com. I haven't changed it yet. I'll have to get around to that. All right. That's it for now, guys. I'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.